So I'm going to be discussing briefly tonight some simple things that you can do to truth your local community. And I was thinking about this earlier today while I was at the coffee shop uploading today's video. And then I was thinking about the need for there to be local conscious prepper groups where people talk about preparedness that is outside the box of partisan politics, that is outside the box of tribalism. And I was about to hit record, but I decided not to, and I got in my car and drove off. Then I did a double take, and I saw that there was a food buyer club in my area picking up their food from a delivery truck. So that was awesome to see. So there's preparedness, which is important, and what you can do locally to save money, buying in bulk, buying wholesale, if you will, large packages, rather than just going to some survival website, buying freeze-dried food. Nothing wrong with that, but that's not the only thing that you want to get. You want a variety of healthy, nutritious foods. And so that was something that I saw as a sign. And I've already done that in the past. I put out a lot of my own personal time and energy towards the meetups. And I probably should restrain myself from overextending myself and my energy. Being that I'm already creating lots of content, more content than what most people can watch in reality, which is why I really need to work on a book. I do regret spending many years on quote unquote alternative conspiracy theory patriot radio when all of those websites deleted every single one of my podcasts. So when I talk about a truth manual or a manual, this is the book, although there's more that I'm going to write. When I talk about advice that I have for a truth speaker, this is written from my experience. So as an ethnic person, I have faced unique challenges that other people sharing their insights haven't faced. And so the truth is, a lot of people that are black and white aren't going to face certain challenges and levels of discrimination in the conspiracy theory movement. It's when you're outside of those groups that you encounter resistance. And so even though, however, you may still face certain pushback if you're exposing certain things and getting too close to the truth. So in the modern day and age, right, you don't have to show your ID to get on the internet. So briefly, in a short video, just to get your wheels turning in your head, because now is the time when you feel that energy from the full moon and the solar flares, it should be moving you forward in your life. You don't need to wait till next year or wait till you get a degree or wait till you read a certain book before you take mindful action. So sharing information to the larger world through the internet is important, and you can do it anonymously. Making money, however, that's a different thing. But some of you already have jobs and careers, or what we would call a social network outside of social media. Okay, and so by being anonymous and not putting your name on something and doing things correctly, there's a lot of things that you can cover. Okay, you don't necessarily have to do something in your name. So we'll talk about that. The other thing that we'll talk about briefly is ways in which you can also anonymously truth your community. So you need to understand these are not necessarily the same thing. Truthing or putting out information on the internet for the whole world to see is not the same thing as the strategies that you might implement in your own local community. And I'll just share this real quick. I have made attempts to bring on certain pastors that have their own websites that are in different places in America that have exposed right-wing extremism and QAnon disinformation in their own little spheres. But when I attempt to interview them, including J.P. Haggart, who wrote the book over here on demonology, they will very rarely ever get back to me via email. Whereas 10 years ago, it was really easy for me to interview people and bring on guests. And so for more reasons than I can get into at this time, times have changed. And people are a lot more tribal, even if they're on the left, and they may not be able to see their own BS, to be frank. So what I'm here to tell you now is there's a reason why I don't interview a lot of people anymore. A lot of people don't get back to me when I do send them interview requests. There's a great level of distrust. There isn't a sense of community. There's no sense of community. There is no sense of unity. A lot of people are basically in a never-ending state of war up here. And a lot of people act like they want to spread the teachings of Jesus Christ, but they come to the table with stipulations. Oh, I'm not going to talk to you unless I know about your ministry. Well, why does somebody have to have a ministry in order for you to speak to them? So in the case of J.P. Haggart, he posts on his page, he's only going to go on large radio shows that are hosted by pastors. Why are they segregating their message? Why are they saying that their understanding of demonology and the teachings of Jesus Christ that they are sharing are only going to be shared with people who they agree with? Why not take the message to the people that are suffering? Is it not said that Jesus would sit down with the prostitutes and the low and downtrodden? Are we seeing pastors and spiritual leaders? This also includes Muslim leaders. They also, listen to me now, they also refuse to have anything to do with me. In the case of the author of this book, and this is a very important book, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend the YouTube channel. But due to the fact that he has 111,000 subscribers, due to the fact that he has over 6 books, and who knows how many copies are out there of this book, this man is in no way obligated to come on my show or my channel. The truth is, those of us that are men of God, we have to be careful who we talk to and what shows we go on. And in some cases, we have to follow our intuition. So in some cases, right, it's not good to go on certain shows or even to have on certain guests. In other cases, it's an unconscious bias. And I would say in many cases, spiritual leaders, pastors, for example, they should go on smaller shows, or they should go on cable access TV, or they should go on other podcasts in order to spread their teachings, especially if they're already reaching a large amount of people already. So let's talk about these two things. Let's talk about basics of sharing information on the internet and some strategies that you might want to implement, and then also spreading truth and information in your own local community, right? The first thing that I'm going to say, and this dovetails the longer video on online addiction. And if you haven't seen that, right, go to my Substack page or go to my YouTube channel and take a look at that information. Take a listen to what I have to say about how internet addiction has damaged many people's minds to the point where they can't think critically. They oftentimes don't have empathy, and they have really short attention spans. When I look at the analytics, for example, on my YouTube channel, it shows me that people are watching only a few minutes of the video and then backing out. And that is not a sign of higher consciousness. That's actually quite disappointing. So is the low engagement. That includes on the Substack page. People need to understand that engagement is important to participate. It shows that you're listening, that you're paying attention. When you share the content, it's showing that you appreciate the content. And there's many ways that you can share content without putting your own name on it. And so there are things to be concerned about, but if everybody is so paranoid that they're not even willing to share other people's content because they're afraid something bad is going to happen to them, I would say that they have let the matrix or the system infect them in an unhealthy way. And they need to understand that it is okay to share links and information, especially when the information is not illegal, when it is spiritual in nature. And oftentimes, I see a lot more people supporting radical extremism of various kinds. So honestly, I think that what I'm really dealing with in this situation and many others is spiritual warfare. I actually have a lot more work ahead of me if I'm to attract the caliber of audience that's willing to help me grow my channel and get my message out there. But until that day happens, for the most part, it's an uphill battle. So I'm going to lay this out there in a pretty basic way. You can get information out there already. You can check out books already on how to start a blog, for example. There are books that you might want to check out. There's one called The Art of Invisibility, and it's basically some important information as far as protecting your identity. And so, some basic, this is like some basic stuff that you don't have to be like an expert on. This is pretty common sense. You can use a VPN. And for years, I've never used a VPN, never saw a point in using a VPN, never saw a point in doing anything outside of my name. I've always used my birth name. But for some things, in some areas, you may want to go around that. And there's a long, long list of reasons why you might want to do that. And so the way I look at the future and the reality is, in many ways, human beings are the threat, not necessarily the government. People that are going to hate on you or your message because of what you're saying. And so when it comes to creating a stage name, combined with using a VPN, you may want to keep certain fundamentals in place, okay? Someone can be identified by their voice, by their face, by their location, and by the subject matter itself, okay? And we will see in the not too distant future how much of a threat artificial intelligence actually is. But it isn't all powerful, okay? There are still ways in which people can go with a computer to a coffee shop without registering anything. They can disable their webcam, and they can choose to use a device for only sharing specific information, whereas they use another device or computer. I recommend that people use computers. I do not recommend that people really have anything to do with cell phones. I've always been that way. I've always been anti-cell phone for many, many reasons. I'm also not a big fan of using the microwave. I use it once in a while, but not very often. And so if you have a laptop, it is preferable for you to do things on that laptop because on a lot of those computers, there's less radiation. There's less of a health risk associated with that. And it may be easier with a laptop for you to disable certain features, such as the webcam or other features that are basically engaged in surveillance, such as the microphone. When it comes to a cell phone, even if it's off, it is still recording. Some say it is still gathering data. And if you respect your own privacy, that's not a good thing. And so there are websites out there that you can use for free that you don't have to pay anything for. They range from Tumblr to WordPress. Now there is Substack. Okay, and Substack functions like a newsletter. You may not want to, of course, attach a bank account for privacy reasons to Substack. Substack did keep $150 from an individual who did donate as soon as I launched the Substack page. And so it's interesting how these websites will take money from individuals before the content creator even sets up their own bank details, right? So Substack can not necessarily be trusted with money. I actually have a need to generate money through the content that I create. And so I'm going to have to diversify the websites in the future, in the near future, that I create content on in order to attract more people to my content. And I do believe that we are now entering into an era of time in which there is going to be a greater demand for content like mine. But if I stay on Facebook, if I stay on YouTube, I'm only going to be able to reach a certain amount of people. And one of the things that I'm noticing on Facebook is it is suggesting to me certain content creators like We Are Change, like Mark Dice, like Steven Crowler, like Matt Walsh, like Glenn Beck, like many others, including Vinny Eastwood, whose show I have been on many, many times. And a lot of these people make a lot of money on their platforms while claiming that they're victims and not acknowledging the privilege that they do have when they are boosted by the algorithm, whereas ethnic content creators like myself, in my 15th year, in my 16th year, struggle to break 30 views per video, 40 views per video, or to accumulate more than a few $100s or $100 per month in donations. And that is not an accident. Content creators like myself are marked. And so, if you want to have a larger audience online and you suspect that you may be marginalized either because of your information or for other reasons, then you need to think outside the box of using your given birth name. Now, I have not yet engaged in any major projects not in my name, but perhaps in the future, I may engage in certain tactics. One of the terms often used, although it's overused, is guerrilla media. That's actually been used by Vinny Eastwood and Pete Santilli, so I would never actually use that actual verbiage. But that's basically what I'm getting at. Underground media, independent media that's going outside the box of the big tech websites. So like I said, you can create a certain name that may have a catch to it, maybe a certain name that is commonly Googled or searched So maybe a play on words where you take certain words or terms that are already going viral, that are already co-opted in some cases by the left or the right, and maybe you want to take that term and inject the real truth in it. So for example, there is a term out there, racism is a virus, but it's co-opted by the left. Somebody could take that same term and more accurately describe the widespread racism going on to all groups and all people. However, the AI algorithm is going to see what you're saying, is going to analyze what you're saying and what you're writing, and it's going to determine whether or not it's even going to show people that content. And if you're a certain content creator like myself and you are flagged by AI, you will not even be able to reach people of your own heritage and ethnicity. And most of you can't say to me that you have also experienced the exact same thing, as most of you are white or black, from what I understand. And feel free to let me know if you're outside of that box as well. I welcome information, new information that educates me about my current demographic data, but you're not going to get that accurate data from AI or Google. By the way, YouTube is claiming to desire to be more inclusive, and so it's gathering racial data. But even the boxes that it provides are not really the boxes that it should be providing to be fully inclusive. It's still putting people in these racial categories that doesn't really have a space for people that are multi-ethnic, not multicultural. That's a word that's been forced onto us. Reject it. It's bullshit. Many of us are unicultural, one culture, the Americult. And it is a cult. And so YouTube, I have often called Nazi tube. And I've talked about that for years. So if we want to reach people, yes, we're going to have to post on YouTube. We may have to post on Facebook because it's where the people are, but it's a trap. Ultimately, these big tech websites are vampiring on our energy, and they're limiting how many people we can reach. And so a lot of people now, they're going to Rumble, Odyssey, and BitChute, but those are also right-wing echo chambers where you're only going to reach people that are at a certain level of intelligence and will often be very close-minded to people from other cultures and other ethnicities that have other understandings outside of the left-right paradigm. And so as the internet continues to grow and evolve, even though there's a lot of control, there is still a lot of elbow room and leeway for those that have the energy and motivation and focus to actually write something. And you need to do this with the right intention. What is your intention? I would say that when you're speaking your truth and you're shining the light on the darkness of this world and on the unconsciousness of the world, you are promoting positive mental health. Whereas if you self-censor yourself, or if you are censored by the algorithms, which I am, it really can push your mental health to the limit to where you might even face a breakdown or burnout. And I have gone through a lot of burnout. You know, I have created, I think over the course of my life, maybe over 8,000 or 9,000 videos and thousands of podcasts, as I just told you, that have been censored and removed from the internet, not by Google or YouTube, but by conspiracy theorists that got deeper into far-right content. They came to believe that my content was 110% worthless. The problem with conspiracy theorists, however, is they tend to want to be entertained, and they tend to come across as coquettes, so to speak, looking for that next hit or line of conspiracy theory, as opposed to other genres. So we can look at dancers, the martial arts, philosophy. And when we look at other demographics of human beings, there seems to be a greater level of appreciation for the human soul. That's the content creator. There is a much more likelihood that friendships will be established. Whereas with conspiracy theorists, there really aren't any friendships to be established because the vast majority of them are in a fearful state of mind. It's also very unlikely for a good man to meet a good woman who is in the conspiracy theory audience, as she is likely to already have had her mind damaged and adulterated by demonic entities that have taken over human beings that are going viral on YouTube. So they may think that they're spiritual. They may say neurotically, in Jesus' name, amen, but not actually understand the demonic influence over her favorite viral content creators. There's a real lack of empathy. And in another video, we'll talk more about helping women become more spiritual, becoming more empathetic. But the truth is, you're not going to get true empathy from a lot of the female conspiracy theory, either content creators or content consumers. And it has a lot to do with the sign of the times that we're in. So hopefully that is an introduction to you as far as getting information out there, that if you feel like you have a message, you should cultivate that message. You should write by hand in a notebook, okay? Or if you're a fast typer, go ahead and type quickly into Facebook, because Facebook has a way of pulling out of ourselves these long, drawn out rants. But you don't want to leave your content on Facebook. There's an individual by the name of Archie who consumes some of my content, and he wanted to write a little bit about seeing some of my protests in Portland back in the day. And I said, fine, feel free to do that. Feel free to share that in the public. And he shares it on Facebook. And I'm here to say that if you want to share something in the public eye, while a lot of people are on Facebook, a lot of people are not on Facebook. And so people really need to think outside the box of being addicted in the same way that a heroin addict is addicted to slamming dope in their arm. Modern humans are addicted to Facebook and YouTube. And if you really want to get the truth out there, you need to mature to the level of becoming an author or managing websites or blogs that are not hosted on Facebook. There's plenty of people that have left Facebook. There's plenty of people that have stopped watching YouTube. And so if you really want to get a message out there and you feel passionate about that message, you don't want to only post on the big tech websites. And there's another phrase out there, don't get high on your own supply. And so there's a lot of content creators that will become intoxicated by the social media matrix. And so what I try to do is create content and share it on multiple platforms and then get off. And I'm not really missing much. I got on recently to check a few messages, and there was literally zero engagement with today's post. There was, I think, maybe 1 or 2 comments on today's YouTube video. And again, I've been creating content for 15 or 16 years. I started in 2004. So we're basically looking at almost 19 years. So if people out there don't know that I'm heavily censored and shadow banned, they're either not very intelligent or they're not paying attention, and or other factors as well. So I encourage you to read books. I encourage you to get exercise. I encourage you to take up a spiritual practice. I encourage you to go out in nature. I encourage you to learn from other ethnicities and cultures. If you are able to travel outside of your own little bubble, I encourage you to do that as well. And I am here to warn you about this normal modern day reality of spending all day long on YouTube, Facebook, BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey, and all the rest of the websites, either consuming content all day long on those websites or pumping or putting all of your content on those websites. Now, with the transcription option provided by AI, before AI completely destroys us, we should use AI to speed up the rate at which we can get our information out there to the most people. Don't just think about getting lots of likes and clicks. There's ways in which you might be able to reach more people through other websites, but you may not get that dopamine hit from the likes or the comments. The question is, what is your intention? Is it to get high off of social media? If we've excluded the need to make money aspect, if you already have a career, or you're retired, or you have some other income, or you have family or friends that are helping you out, then what is your intention? It cannot be simply to get likes and clicks and comments, because there are other websites out there, including archive.org, in which you can post content or books or videos on those websites, and it's going to rank higher on Google in some cases than some of your posts on Facebook. Okay, so that's an introduction. And there was a request for someone to be able to read this, but I need to take the time to transcribe this. And so I would like to be able to do that in 2024. This looks like one of my journals. And I actually have this many journals. Never published. A lot of them created when I was off the grid. So maybe at some point later on in life, some of that content will be published, along with, hopefully, an autobiography. So we're already 33 minutes into this. And, I could make these in short videos. But honestly, unless someone's going to help me take my many ideas and put them in the form of a YouTube short, I personally don't want to do that. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of effort. And there's a lot of different ideas that I want to share, because honestly, I'm a creative, right? I'm an artist, if you will, a spoken word artist. And so I can speak and speak and speak. In fact, I have some podcasts that have never been released that are 6 hours in length. As far as my podcast where I expose the dark side of the adult industry, that recording is about 3 hours. There's another recording that has not yet been uploaded, in which I expose the dark side of Netflix, Tubi, Hulu, essentially streaming video content, in which many Americans today, many humans around the world, are addicted to. And if there was more engagement on my Substack page, if there were more comments, then those videos, then those podcasts would be up. I actually feel like I'm uploading too much content. Correct me if I'm wrong. Again, correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. But I feel like I'm actually creating too much content and that the people aren't able to keep up. Looking at the analytics, looking at the numbers. And so while there is some growth, it's not really the type of growth that should be there. things were really, really different 10 years ago. So let's move on to the next topic. So if you have a local cable access TV center in your own local community, like where I live right now, there is no cable access, right? But there is in Portland, Oregon. And so due to the fact that several volunteers have stepped forward and have offered to help me put my show back on the air, I'm going to be speaking to Portlanders in January. In fact, it's already happening. Episodes that I've already put together, for example, the episode in which I'm exposing the dark side of conspiracy theory and talking about how my information is very, very different than the mainstream conspiracy theory trash that you will commonly find promoted by the social media algorithms. That video is already playing now in Portland, Oregon. However, how many people watching those videos are actually going to subscribe to my Substack? I had a video that had 750 views on my main YouTube channel. Maybe 1 to 2 to 3 individuals came over and signed up to my Substack. And so there's something fundamentally flawed in the intellects of today's YouTube viewer and social media consumer. If they refuse to join a newsletter and get access to multiple podcasts, it makes me really wonder if there's some sort of mind control taking place, even with YouTube and Facebook and certainly with TikTok, to where people become abnormally addicted to what might be some sort of proprietary software or video codec. In the same way in which there are additives in the food at McDonald's, Taco Bell, and Burger King that keep you coming back and back and back for more. Even though it's not really healthy and it's not really nutritious, people keep coming back and back and back for more of that food once they're hooked. And I suspect that the same thing is happening with YouTube. So as I said before, many years ago, there is a point, especially if you want to spiritually protect yourself, there is a point in consuming content outside of YouTube, downloading podcasts and listening to them on your MP3 player, turning off your internet, and again, reading books. Reading is good for the brain. It's like a muscle. If we don't use it, we lose it, and it atrophies. And what I'm sensing is there is major atrophy going on with a lot of people, with their brains. So even if I do create hours and hours and hours and hours of content and I put it on social media, due to the atrophy going on with people's brains, it's not really connecting. It's not really content that a lot of people are going to understand or appreciate. Even if I go on a major radio show like Coast to Coast AM, and I talk about the influence of the solar cycles, and I talk about in June of 2019, how when we hit the mid-2020s, there's going to be an increase in unrest, in violence, and wars, and rumors of wars, due to the way that we historically see the influence of the solar cycles, of the solar maximums, or those periods in which the sun is more active. If only 5 people come over after I'm on a nationally syndicated radio show, there's something fundamentally wrong with the brains of the listeners that are perceiving the message that I delivered in 2019 essentially as worthless and not as, say, entertaining as, say, Steve Quayle, James Gilliland, William Henry, Alex Jones, David Icke. And like I said, I think in the future, when my words are read in 100 years, or even 50 years, or 25 years, the women of the future, they're going to wish they knew a guy like Alex Ansary. They'd be proud to call me their brother, unlike my modern day half sister, who probably doesn't even know that I exist. And I think that that is sick and twisted. And I think that older women of the future would be proud if they were able to call somebody like Alex Ansary their son. Unlike my mother, who probably never, ever tells the people that she knows, that she hangs out with, that I am her son. And she probably, and I'm assuming, and probably correctly, she probably never, ever, ever shares my work or content with her friends or inner circle. So if you have a cable access station in your community, okay, you need to understand that there is massive potential in reaching out to a demographic that watches TV. Let me break it down for you. Okay, when you have people that are channel surfing, going from station to station to station, that's a very magical experience where you are trying to, and literally in some cases, yelling on the top of your lungs, wake up, wake up, for crying out loud. People, you need to wake up. Come out of your trance. And I literally have done that on screen, and I've literally woken people up from their sleep and met them through synchronicity the next day, for example, at the Sandy River in the state of Oregon, just outside of Portland, and literally physically met someone that told me that he woke up as he fell asleep watching TV. He woke up to the sound of somebody yelling, wake up, and the next day we meet. We didn't end up becoming great friends. I don't know what was the point in me actually meeting him, or what was the point of that or the purpose, but things like that have happened. Along with ending up in people's dreams and even people that I talk to online, or people that have left comments, or people that I've worked for in the past, or people whose content that I've consumed, many of them ending up in my dreams, and me wondering, is this like a dream or a parallel reality where we're both in it and it's a real place and we really did have that conversation that went on for hours and hours and hours, or was it really just in my mind? Don't really know. So don't underestimate the power of cable access TV. I don't consume InfoWars content, but fortunately, because someone else in 2002, when they did turn in the Alex Jones documentary, 9/11 Road to Tyranny, a light bulb went off above my head, and he was an inspiring force in my life where there weren't any others in my community or on cable access TV that were pushing back against the narrative that led to the invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan. And so for that, I appreciate that information. For those years in which that individual was sharing that content and was not promoting hatred of those groups and people. He was pushing back, in fact, against the popular narrative, or the vox populi. I'm going to move on to some other things and keep this under an hour. I wasn't planning to do a second recording, but I feel the energy with this full moon. And I believe that it peaks at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what time zone. So these are definitely times to reflect. These are definitely times to think about what you want to do with the rest of the month. If somebody's thinking about creating content, go with that thought. Take a pen, take a journal. I know you've seen these at Walmart. They cost $1. Take a piece of paper from your computer, printer paper. You don't even need to have actual notebook paper. And start writing down, these are all topics that I want to put into a book. The left and right often unite against those they are programmed to hate. attributes of real friends versus bad friends. Of course, when I actually wrote down these things, I had a lot of thoughts as to what I would actually say. So what you want to do is not necessarily do exactly what I've done and just write one-liners, but get detailed. Over in this notebook here, these are all topics for future videos. These are all future videos. It's really too bad more people don't know about my content. In all honesty, I think that if certain people were aware of my content, they would like it, they would watch it, they would share it with others. But due to shadow banning, due to AI interference, and due to the way in which people discriminate, due to the way in which people on the left will see me as a right winger, and people on the right will see me as a left winger, many people, due to their programming, will discard my content as worthless and will not share it even if they watch it. It's like they're embarrassed or something. These are ideas that I had today. For example, the female version of misogyny doesn't have a name, right? So people are familiar with the term misogyny, and ultimately many men that are critics of unconscious women are not necessarily misogynists. They're men that still have their instincts, that still want to protect the tribe, even if they don't have family or a tribe of their own. They still have instincts within them that wants to protect the woman. And because of the evil in this world, these instincts are being eradicated and bred out of us. And so while many people are familiar with this term misogyny, there isn't really a term that society is using to describe the discrimination towards men that comes from today's women. And an individual by the name of Aaron said that he would like to come on to my channel and podcast in the future to talk about what he knows about the dark feminine rising, or the dark side of feminism, in which he has firsthand experienced this. Many women in places like Portland that view men as being naturally evil, as being part of an original sin. And I actually see mainstream headlines from Newsweek in which they're giving voice to women that are very upset and shocked and disappointed that they gave birth to a male. And so men like me need to exist to talk to women in the present and the future about maintaining that sacred masculine and feminine, that nurturing side of us and that protective side of us. And basically giving advice with regards to what it actually means to be a conscious parent. And you do not have to be a human being that has procreated to have the consciousness within you to provide advice to a parent who has, to a human being who has given birth to a child. The reality is many people alive today that have not brought in children into this world actually have more of what it takes to be a good dad, to be a good mom, than many of the human beings who have unconsciously brought children into this world. And as I have shown you, you can be a man of God and be a victim of child abuse. You can speak about spiritual matters while also having a psychopathic mother and father who won't take accountability for their own unconscious actions. Okay, so wrapping things up, there's many ways in which you can bypass the AI algorithm and provide truth to your community, right? So you want to take digital detoxes. You want to take your information that you may have written out by hand and create zines, Okay, you want to think outside the box of Amazon. Sure, it may be easy for you to reach thousands of people in your community on certain Facebook groups. I'm not saying to not use those Facebook groups. I'm saying to not let those Facebook groups be the only way in which you communicate with people in your community. I mean, have a heart and have a higher consciousness and bring them together as one. Do you understand? There are people in today's day and age, believe it or not, that don't use email, that don't use social media. There are many elderly, even today, that don't have the internet, that only have cable TV. So we talked about access TV. If you have it in your own local community, you should use it. You should take my videos and you should put my face and my voice, if you're willing to help me, and put them on cable access TV in your community. And I asked, of course, you do that with my permission and that you work with me on that so that I'm aware of what markets I'm in, because I feel that my message needs to be heard in Los Angeles, in New York City, in Portland, Oregon, in Seattle, Washington, in Denver, Colorado, in Miami, in other places, in America, in small towns, because the reality is, because a lot of people have been hypnotized by the internet, a lot of people have been convinced that these old technologies are worthless, but they're not worthless. Okay, there's also the reality that some people still have VHS players. Okay, so there still is value in documentaries that are not in DVD form. Cassette tapes, I'm not sure, but I wouldn't discount the value of some information on cassette tapes. But I really want to put the focus right here in this moment on downloading videos of quality, whether it be my content, somebody else's content, individual YouTube videos, or whole-on documentary films, or you yourself in your own local community, in your own house, at your own kitchen table, or in your own home studio. As you can see with YouTube, there's a lot of people with really nice studios who look like they're in really nice homes. Or you can make it look like you're in a really nice home while you're actually living in the ghetto. You can buy one of those Japanese bamboo screens. You can get one of those black backgrounds from eBay. And so you can look like you're Charlie Rose. You can look like you are literally the mainstream media if you want to take the time to edit your show. And what you want to do, I haven't done this yet, what you want to do is get that down to maybe a half hour, and distribute that DVD. I'm definitely going outside the box tonight, folks. Distribute that DVD onto the windshields of cars. I think that it's illegal. It is illegal to actually put DVDs in mailboxes, but you can burn DVDs and take a stack of DVDs and leave them at a coffee shop. You might want to get permission. You can also use bulletin boards to promote your blog, right? So you want to use your intelligence. What words do you want to use? What do you want to put in that paragraph that is custom tailored to your own local community? And so what have we talked about? The need for people to rise above the illusions of separation and work together. The need for men of God and women of God to work together to shine the light on Satan's kingdom, or however you might define it. Some people don't want to use religious terms. You don't have to. You don't have to use spiritual terms or even believe in spiritual warfare to know that there is a rise in psychopathy in today's society. You can hand out DVDs at the park, okay? And so I encourage you to not assume that everything that we do is meant to be done on the big tech websites. A lot of things need to be done in the streets. Okay, so we talked about blogs and promoting those blogs in your own local community. You print something out and you have it set up to where they can rip off your phone number or your website, and there could be many, many cuts in the piece of paper to where they rip off a piece of paper and it has your blog and or your phone number and or your post office box. And there's many different ways they can hand out DVDs. As far as zines are concerned, again, these are cheaply produced paperbacks. I don't have any zines here to show you. I do have a Reader's Digest. Not quite the same, but you see what I'm talking about here. This is Reader's Digest. It was sent to me by a friend in Portland. And this is about the length of a zine. And I aspire one day to have multiple zines on multiple topics, but then to have a larger book that is a compilation of the information that is in the zines. And so with today's limited attention span, some people won't want to read a larger book like this, but you hand them for free, especially if you have the money from your retirement or your high-paying job. You can invest that money in something other than your home, other than your grocery bill, other than your Netflix bill, other than your Amazon bill. And if you were gifted with prosperity, then you can give back to your community by investing in the raw materials themselves. You can also publish a mini newsletter and distribute that in your community. There's a number of different ways in which you might distribute a newsletter. I've given you a couple ideas already. Literally on cars, at coffee shops, going to places in your community to where there is a high level of pedestrian traffic. And you may want to think about how you're going to dress, how you're going to approach people, what you're going to say. And if you're anything like me, you have to exercise self-restraint and prevent yourself from saying too much that might alienate them. The truth of the matter is, some people are drawn to listen to somebody speak or to watch them on video or to watch a documentary film, and others, they are more likely to read a blog on the internet, an email, or to read a newsletter that comes in the form of paper like this, or a magazine like this, or a zine about this size. Okay, so it is about, as we close here, reaching people at the level that they're at. Blogs, books, zines, newsletters, emails, podcasts, documentary films, DVDs, YouTube channels. Think outside the box of what the herd is doing. And you might be surprised at the results.